to take a different journey in my professional career. So I'm the owner, founder of Changed Inside Out. And what I do best is I spent decades learning how systems and business systems and technical systems worked. And in all of that, I spent more of my time in the people leadership role and in the influencing role. And I started noticing how people work. So when I left the corporate world, I came out into this world, and I went to school. I call it the school, street school, and starting how people work, neuroscience of people, all kinds of things. And so what my special gift is I understand how people work and how human operating systems work and how to unlock those operating systems and fine tune them so that those people can achieve more success. And we focus on that through clarity, resilience, inner strength, and calm confidence. So that's a little bit about me. So let's talk about embracing uncertainty. So how many of you have a rubber band somewhere in your house, right? Everybody has a rubber band, probably somewhere in their house. And there you got a rubber band right there, right? Okay. So rubber band is an absolutely amazing example of resilience. It can be stretched, twisted, turned, wrapped, etc. But when it's done, it comes back to its normal state. It comes back to how it is. And the interesting thing is people are a little bit like this. However, we tend to, when we're in uncertain times, when we're under stress, we tend to get stretched into all kinds of different places and etc. And we forget to come back to kind of our center, our strength center. And so I use this as an example because if we spend too much time stretched thin, worrying, stressing out, etc., what happens to this if we're spending so much time? There it went, right? We snap, we break. The rubber band snaps and break. Well, we do too. So no matter how blessed we are in our lives, no matter how perfect everything is, we can have the perfect career, the perfect home, the perfect everything. The bottom line is life is uncertain. And if we are living life, we're living life even in times of uncertainty. And so we'll talk about that and how doing that with resilience, as opposed to worrying willy-nilly, running pell-mell, tumble-mumble. So I tell people, are you embracing uncertainty like an action movie or a horror movie? So in a horror movie, the character, right? The main character, what are they doing? They're running away from the fear, hoping that the bad guy doesn't get them, right? So they're worrying, they're scrambling, they're running away. And what happens? Well, they usually get caught and then they die, right? Where in an action movie, the character is constantly running towards the next tool, the next thing that will help me, the next piece of support that will keep moving me forward. So it's kind of like that, ooh, here's a room and it has tools in it, I can use these, right? So I kind of ask people, are you facing uncertainty like a horror movie or like an action movie? My goal is to help you face it like an action movie, and that you're looking with it through eyes and through the perspective of here's the next thing and here's how I can make it through this, okay? So tip number one is when we're facing uncertainty is to embrace it and acknowledge it, right? How many of us, and I am in this camp too, we all faced a ton of uncertainty in the past few months, right? How many of us had moments where we went into the closet and went, I just don't even want to do this, right? I don't want to do this. I don't want to deal with this. I can't take this. This is like, and we just kind of shut down and we go, this can't be happening. I don't want to believe it's happening. We kind of go into the dark, right? The ostrich puts his head in the sand. And it's okay. Sometimes we need to take those moments, but then what we need to do is we just really need to understand it's happening and it's going to happen. And we can either accept it and face it and decide how we're going to face it, or we can keep trying to avoid it, hide from it, and ignore it. And that doesn't help. So acknowledge that the uncertainty is happening. Then the next thing that we want to try and do is we want to try and reframe the uncertainty. And this is one where some of our amazing minds. So one of the things, and I'll tell you some key secrets, one of the amazing things about your brain is that your brain's number one job is to keep you alive. And it does that by wanting you to avoid any kind of emotional or physical pain. So if you're in any kind of emotional distress or physical pain, your mind goes, you must be dying. I need to get you to do something else, right? So if we're facing uncertainty, one of the things that we need to do to kind of get our mind on board of how can I deal with this is we need to look at this and say, interesting, what can I discover? What adventure awaits? What change could I step into? And if we start looking at it with a little bit of a sense of excitement, it's funny, nervousness and excitement are sort of the same emotion, but it's just which way we're giving them. Nervousness is the running willy-nilly like a horror movie. Excitement is the moving forward like the action drama character moving themselves to the next forward, right? And so can we make that shift from nervousness, et cetera, and start looking at what opportunities can I find? What else could I see in this? Career changes, right? What else, what haven't I done yet that I might want to do next? Business changes. What if I wanted to try in my business that I haven't had time to, now I can, kind of things, right? So you start reframing this as an opportunity. The number 3 thing is you actually can handle it. So if you're here at this presentation breathing, it means you've lived through everything that life has thrown at you and you haven't died yet. So that means that you can handle anything that's thrown your way. How many of you have been through the ringer a few times, right? We've had some challenges and ups and downs, right? And we kind of get to the point that some people have the mentality of, oh my gosh, why me? Here we go again. Other people go, you know what? I am not dead yet. I have not died yet. I don't live under a bridge, and I have handled and overcome everything that's come at me. I can do this again. And so we have to remember, we have already come through things. Whatever you're facing now, you absolutely can handle it. So when we make that shift, again,
it's 1:15.
When we make that shift, we're avoiding the horror story, running willy-nilly, and being the action figure, moving forward. The 4th thing, and this is a tough one, I love, who are my type A overachievers that love to be perfect, right? In the corporate world, the corporate world does not embrace imperfection, right? The corporate world wants everything perfect, paint by the numbers, do everything perfect, etc. That's not how life is. Life is amazingly imperfect. So if you guys, for some of us who have kids who are doing hybrid learning, part at school, part at home, or when we had to do this at home school, we had to get really comfortable with imperfection because we had to get really comfortable with, we're not going to do it perfect. Our kids are not going to learn every single thing. We're not going to get through every single assignment, right? We have to start getting comfortable with imperfection, because if we're waiting for perfection, we will be stuck and frozen. But when we can learn to say, done is done enough, good is good enough, try is try enough, we start giving ourselves compassion and grace to take steps forward. Whereas if we're trying to be perfect, we will be frozen, we'll procrastinate, we'll worry, we'll ruminate, we'll stay stuck. Our rubber band will be stretched out so far that it will snap and break in half. And it's interesting, probably some of the most rewarding experiences in life happened from complete imperfect experiences. The 5th one. So this is one, and I have an exercise for this one that I take my clients through, and it's prepare for different outcomes. So when you're facing uncertainty, one of the things that I ask you to do is, what is the worst thing that could happen? Right? So if you're going into a job interview, or if you're pivoting in your business, or if you're doing a presentation for the first time, or if, whatever it is, I want you to look, because your mind's job is to scan everything all the time to say, are you safe? Are you in danger, right? And so when you intentionally direct your mind and say, okay, in this situation, this is the very worst thing that could happen. And then you go, and if this happens, this is how I will deal with it. Then I want you to go backwards and say, what else could possibly happen? And if these scenarios happened, how would I deal with it? So in the corporate world, especially in project management, in change management, et cetera, we do risk assessment. So I want you to kind of take a risk assessment. So risk assessment says, if I walk down this path, or if we embark on this project, what are the risks that could happen? What are the potential failures or things that could happen? And how would we deal with them if they did? So we kind of start projecting in advance to say, okay, if something goes wrong, we're going to have some plans in place to deal with it. This is the same thing that rings true in our personal lives, right? Relationship, maybe we need to have a conversation with somebody about behavior or boundaries or expectations. And so it's like, well, if I say this and then they reject me or they get mad at me, then that's going to be the worst case scenario. And so that's okay. Get your mind prepared for that. That person could fly off the handle. You can't control how that person's going to receive, right? That person could fly off the handle. They could reject you. What would happen if they did? You're not going to die, right? But might you be hurt? Might you be upset, etc.? But what would you do? So when you start directing your mind and giving your mind a focus of, here's the worst case, here's other possible outcomes, you literally give your mind the direction, the sense that you've got it, you're in control, and that you're prepared. And also you sort of have a checklist of, if this happens, this is what I do next. If this happens, this is what I do next. So when you move into that next step, whatever the outcome is, you go, oh, I was totally, either I was prepared for that, or something even better happened that I wasn't even prepared could happen. So if you give yourself the opportunity to prepare for different outcomes, you're increasing your internal self-confidence of how I can deal with this. Number 6, this is my favorite one. This is the focus on the things that you can control. So I'll give you 3 things to ask yourself. Can I control this? Meaning, can I change this? Can I control this? And then I want you to ask yourself, can I influence this? Things we can influence. This is it's a simple example, but it rings true. You can influence a good night's sleep, but you can't control it. You can influence it by turning off devices an hour ahead of time. Always, not having devices in your room, having your room temperature, going to sleep at a consistent time, right? You can do all these actions that have an influence. You still can't control the outcome. And then there are things that, what do I have no influence or control over, right? Politics is a great place to look at that right now, right? That we only have so much influence, control, etc. But what is it that I can't control or I can't influence? Someone else's behavior, the weather. Sorry, I have cats that are having a duking it out in the hallway right now. I can't control the weather. I can't control, if I schedule a big event and we scheduled to do it outside and the rain moves in, I can't control that. I can't even influence that, right? So I'm gonna have to let that go and have a backup plan. But what I can control is I can control my response to it. I can control how I think and feel about it. I can control how much energy I'm going to give to the situation, either complaining and being frustrated about it, or I can give my energy to finding the next way forward. So the focus on the things that you can control, and they are mostly yours. They're your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. Usually everything else outside of that, we can't control. And so when we let go of what we can't control and say, that's beyond my scope of control. You've probably heard people say this in the business world, right? Somebody comes in, have you ever gone into or called, you've called help desk or called support? and you get the first line person and you're like, look, you know, this is my problem. And you get the sense that they can't help you with your problem. And you say, like, this is above your pay grade, give me to a supervisor, right? It's kind of the same thing in life. If something is above your pay grade and you can't influence it, you have to decide how you're going to respond to it and where you want to give your energy. So if you ask yourself 3 things, can I control this? Can I influence this? Or do I have to accept this? That will help you with this point and help you decide where to give your time and energy. Number 7, live in the present. Okay. So this is where anxiety and depression kick us in the butt. Anxiety is constantly living in the future that we're not there yet and nothing works out and we're never getting it right. Depression is constantly looking back in the past, blaming, shaming, and condemning ourselves for all the mistakes that we've made that we can't change. So living in the present is about, okay, here's what I have right now. Here's the facts that I have. Here's the information I have. Here's the resources that I have. Here's what's present right now. And making a decision and focusing on what can I do right now? What can I do today? I can't control tomorrow. I can't control next week, but I can control today. And when we spend that time being mindful in this moment, in this present scenario, and stop running ahead or looking behind, we can stop. It's literally kind of being the eye in the storm and saying, this is what I have right now. This is what's here right now. Let's focus on what I can do in this present moment. And we spend a lot of time every day looking 2 and 3 weeks down and 2 years and 3 years going, but it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. Right? So we want to focus on those mindful present moments, living for today. It's great to have plans for tomorrow. It's great to have goals for next year, et cetera, but you're living today. You're not living next year and you're not living last week. It's physically impossible to go back and relive last week. It's done. You're here now, right? So this focusing on the present, the more we focus on the present, the more you give your mind something to focus on that you have more influence, control, and contribution to. Questions so far? Comments?
The slide's going to be available afterward in some, that's one question that came up with this.
Absolutely. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. They can have the slides. You bet.
Great.
We didn't record, did we, Ken?
I'm actually recording, yes.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay. Number 8. Okay, this is kind of goes along with number 7 about being in the present. So the other thing about our mind, right? Your mind's job is constantly to scan. Are you safe or are you in danger? Are you in emotional pain or physical pain? Are you dying, right? So your mind is going to constantly go looking for what's wrong first, what you don't have, right? So how many, when we hit on certain situations, we immediately go to, I haven't saved enough. I shouldn't have bought that car. I shouldn't have invested in this, right? All of these things that we did that we would have had resources for had we not made a choice. Okay. Again, that's sort of that living in the past, but remember everything that you have, not only the physical things that you have, but this is also taking stock and inventory of your personal skills and attributes. Again, if you're here today and you're watching this presentation or listening to this presentation, you have lived through some things, you have learned some things. So you have intellectual property that is always available to you. What experiences do you have in the past? What strengths do you have? What skills do you have? What things have you stockpiled, right? So sometimes this is about what do I have available to me and how can I make that work? So how many of you have like moms, or maybe you can do this. You can walk into the kitchen and the family will say, there's nothing in the kitchen to eat. And you walk into the kitchen and you're like, oh wait, we've got a can of this. I've got this in the refrigerator, this and that. And suddenly now we have a meal, right? It's a silly example, but it's true. If you can walk into your kitchen and go, okay, I have tuna, I have mayo, I have bread, or I have pasta and I have a can of tomato sauce and I have seasoning, I can make it into pasta sauce, right? When you start looking for what you have, you start programming and building in, I have everything I need, right? MacGyver, we've heard the MacGyver theory, the Swiss Army knife. The guy could take anything and make something out of it, right? Instead of what I don't have. Well, I don't have a screwdriver, so I can't put this screw in, right? No, we have a way. There's always a way. Scissors, how many of you have screwed something in with a pair of scissors before? Right? We will always find a way. Humans are amazingly resilient. And if we say, how can I, right? What do I have that would work? We stop shifting from lack and worry and stress into possibility. I can find something. Ooh, this might work. So this is, somebody said attitude of gratitude. It is when things become uncertain, it's really easy for the mind to start going into what is everything is wrong. And you're right. When we start taking stock for, I do have a home, I do have a place, right? I have a car. If I have a car, I can drive Instacart, or I can, I can find something to do, right? What resources do I have and how can I leverage them? Because it puts you in that forward mode. Yeah. Ken?
There's the other question. What about gratitude? How does this fit into remembering what you have and seeing the grace of the moment?
I'm not sure what the
Frank,
question. Yeah.
Frank, you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. Expand on that so I understand more.
You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering the fact that being in the process, but when you're in transition, it's so easy to. I think you started to touch upon it right before I posted or right when I posted the question, but it's an issue of we become discontent. We always see the glass is half empty, and
Yeah.
so in terms of this resilience, and the other question I was going to have was how to do with adaptability. How do we adapt? Like, what is the key? Like, where does gratitude fit in? Is that important? Is it not important? If it is, what does that mean? And the grace of the moment, I'm talking about. We keep on looking, as you mentioned, in the past or the future. But when you're in the present, you're trying to see things that are around you. So I'm
Yep.
just wondering kind of how that all those pieces of the puzzle fit together. I don't know if that makes more sense.
It does make more sense. And I think we'll get there as we move forward in a couple more steps, if that helps. So, because gratitude, right? Gratitude is a practice. And one of the things, Tony Robbins says, and other people have said, what you focus on expands. So when you're focusing on what you don't have, what's not available to you, that picture gets bigger. So I don't know if you've ever gone to clean out a closet that you haven't touched in 5 years, right? When you go to fix a problem, it seems like the problem gets bigger, right? No home project ever is just replace the doorknob. There's always something further to it, right? So when you're going to fix a problem, the problem always seems to get bigger. But when you're focusing on a solution or what I do have, so same thing. If we stop focusing on what I don't have, what I'm losing, if we keep ruminating, and it is how we've trained ourselves, right? So this is habits, how we've trained ourselves to focus, how we've allowed ourselves to focus is how our mind is going to respond automatically. So if we have been in the habit of the past of always focusing on what's going wrong, we call those, right, the negative Nellies. And we all have those moments in life, right? This isn't like life is amazing all the time and blah, blah. That's Pollyanna. That's just not even real. So it is about taking kind of that moment of living in the present and going, how do I feel about this? Because feelings move and change and leave, but how do I want to feel about it? And so that's where that adaptability and resilience comes in, is where do you want to go next? Do you want to stay in the negative muck and in the murky water? Or do you want to focus yourself, right? Are you running willy-nilly like a horror movie character, trying to run away from the fear? Or are you using the power of your mindset connecting with your intention and emotions about how do I want to feel about it? What do I need to do to feel that way about it? And that's a little bit of a different conversation. That when we start looking at all the things we have, suddenly the picture becomes really big. Now I have these things, I have these connections to people, I have, right? Have you guys ever read that book, Stone Soup, when you were kids about, right? I only had the pot, but the person next door had carrots and the person next door had potatoes, right? And suddenly we had all the makings for a soup. It's the same thing in your life. How can you make your own stone soup? What do you have? What else do you have access to? People, resources. I mean, the coolest thing about the environment and what we live in now is the internet, and you literally can go Google, YouTube. If there's something you want to learn, you can go on Udemy. There's so much more resources available to us at the drop of a hat, as opposed to the archaic days when we used to have to go get the British Encyclopedia Britannica to learn something, right? So we have things more readily available to us. But when we can take stock and say, here's exactly what I have and I can leverage this, you create a foundation of confidence and capability that you can start building and growing from. And abundance and gratitude also comes from not what we have externally, but what we have internally, our values, our beliefs, our skills, our strengths. We all have unique character strengths. We all have specific strengths that we have that when we can leverage them in times of uncertainty, they probably work to our advantage really well. We just start focusing on the things we don't have, if that makes sense. So number 9 kind of sort of goes back with the gifts of imperfection. Uncertainty, it's welcoming failure, right? And the biggest thing that holds us back from experiencing any kind of failure is fear, and rightfully so. Again, we have this amazing machine upstairs that's doing all these things to keep us alive in our lives. And one of the very first things about it is am I familiar with this or is this different? Because our mind, the thing that it sees about fear is fear means move, right? Fear means move. In some way, shape, or form, don't stay stuck. We get into this fear zone, and fear becomes uncertainty because we don't know what the outcome is going to be, or we're afraid that we're not going to do it right. It's something different. All of these things, I'm too old. This is where all of our fears of I'm too old, I'm not smart enough, I don't have this degree, I don't have that much money, I'm not an eloquent speaker. Like, we start finding all the things wrong with us of why not to do something, right? And partially we live in a society and in the corporate world that embraces perfection, right? Most companies don't embrace, oh, go try this and fail at it, right? Go try this and see what doesn't work. They want you to do things that absolutely work. And that was one of the things that when I made that transition out of corporate world into business life, etc., was we have to get really comfortable. We almost think about when you were a kid, right? You didn't care if you didn't make the peanut butter and jelly sandwich perfect. It was still edible, right? Kids are like, what happens when I do this? What happens when I push that button? What happens if I say this? Kids have that curiosity that what happens if I do this? And somewhere along the line, society, corporate, cultural norms, etc., have stacked us as we get older to have it all figured out, be perfect. And the truth is that as long as we are human and living in this human life, we are constantly growing. But if we're not willing to try things with an eye of, I really hope this fails because then I know how not to do it. So we've all tried something at least once or twice in our lives that did not go well. And we learned from it. We went, oh, never do that again. Here's how to do it. But we forget that without the failure, we wouldn't have seen how to do it forward. So fail, I want to give you a little secret tip for fail. Looking at failures through the lens of its further awareness and information learned. So I'll put that in the chat box. So it's further awareness and information learned. So if you can look at fail as what additional information am I getting, right? If I decide to go bold on LinkedIn and do videos, right? I hope I fail so I get information. When we can gather and look at the situation and go, okay, what didn't work out? Ah, now I see what didn't work. Now I can make a pivot, right? That's a difference between, you know, growth mindset versus fixed mindset, right? Am I running horror willy-nilly, trying not to let the fear, the failure catch me? Or am I moving forward, learning every step of the way, right? The Thomas Edison, I love that one. Thanks, Leonard. He just found 10,000 ways the light bulb didn't work, right? So we take failure as, oh, I shouldn't do this. Well, it's not always true. Maybe we shouldn't do it that way, right? And so when we start welcoming failure and making a game out of it and saying, well, I know I'm not going to die. So, right, look at, again, go back to one of the earlier steps. What's the worst thing that can happen? And if you know how you're going to respond to it, that you're going to live through it and what you would do, you're already moving yourself forward. So the failure is so low risk. So that's number 9. Oops, I'm in the wrong one. Okay. So how can I apply this now in my life today? So you can have these slides. Ken can post the recording. I will give Ken the PowerPoint presentation. But I want you to take, here's one of the things that you can do, is you can look at your life and say, okay, where in my life am I facing uncertainty? And don't worry about any of the answers. This is just a brain dump. It's just all the things I'm uncertain about. I'm uncertain about my career. I'm uncertain about the economy. I'm uncertain about, you know, my kids' future. I'm uncertain about a relationship. It could be something big. It could be something small, but just kind of when you can write it down, you sort of get it out of memory space here, kind of running the hamster wheel, and you kind of get it out and get it on paper. So you get your brain to kind of do a brain dump. And then I want you to do is now look at the list and look at kind of the top. I say we can't focus on more than 3 things at a time. So I would say the top 3 things that that are most uncertain right now, and probably the things that you're most worried about. Now, the interim step to step number 3 is I want you to look at those 3 things, because the step number 3 says kind of think about the most likely outcome for each one of those choices and make an action plan for how you would deal with them. Before you do step number 3, I want you to go back to focus on what you can control. So of those things that worry you, I want you to look at those 3 different things and each one of those things and ask yourself the question, what can I control? What can I influence? And what must I accept as is? And when you have done that, then go to step number 3, which is, okay, the things I can control, what are the action plans I'm going to do? What daily steps, even if it's one small step a day, right, that you can do? What are the things that I can influence? Then, you know, like I can have a conversation, I can, you know, make my voice heard, et cetera, but I can't control the outcome. And things that I have to accept, we don't want to get a whole bunch of action plans around that, because we're just giving over wasted energy that's not going to create a change anyway. So ask yourself those 3 questions, then go to the 3rd step and say, okay, now, today, what will I do today and tomorrow and the next day, and start making action plans to move you forward in that direction to start resolving that. And that's what I have, Ken. So, yeah, so questions, comments.
You guys can unmute yourselves and just ask away.
Or share, yeah, what your ideas are as well, please.
It's Pat. Hi.
Hi.
I had a question.
Yes.
Thank you for all you've done. Attitude of gratitude is everything. So this was very uplifting. So first of all, just thank you for
You're
hosting.
welcome.
Thank you for your talk. Appreciate it. Question. What do you think holds people back most when it comes to, because I like your 3 tips at the end, they were awesome. What do you think, or maybe people in the chat want to answer too, I don't know, but what holds people back from taking those steps daily? Like accountability, is it hard? Is it easy? What's the big barrier? Because I guess if it was easy, we'd all be already doing it perhaps, right?
Right. So I'll share a couple things that I have struggled with, that I've also seen other people struggle with, and I'm interested to hear what other people say. Sometimes it's clarity. So sometimes not clear on what's important, what I should do.
Okay.
Right? So sometimes there's some clarity, right? Sometimes it's I'm out of my element, so I'm not really clear on what I should do or the order of operations I should be doing things in. So sometimes there's some clarity. So it can be like lack of clarity or knowledge. It can be that accountability piece, right? If we're all working remote right now and we're all in our homes, some of the things we're missing out on our other environments, like when we went to the office, we knew we were taking off our home hat and going into our work hat, right? And so transition times to be in certain roles, if we're missing that can be happening. I love Scott's. We're overthinking it. We're wanting to be perfect at it, right? Or, right, I don't know it. I don't know how to do it, and I'm never going to. Versus, I don't know how to do it, but I'm willing to try. Pat also said lack of transition time as well.
Yeah, I'm copying what you said so people have it in the notes.
Yeah. Also, sometimes when we're having those and facing those, I always ask people, is what you're doing what you decided to do or what you heard somebody say to you that you should do? Okay? Because I always say, no, yeah, fear of asking a stupid question, imposter syndrome, good ones, Ken. Because the world is full of experts telling us what we should do. And my philosophy is no one is the expert of you except you. So sometimes we're doing the things we have been told we should be doing, but we haven't taken stock to say, but does this fit me right now for what I want?
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And sometimes we don't want to do it alone, right? So I found in corporate world for 20 years, I was part of and leading teams. And then I came into this business life and suddenly I was alone all the damn time. And I found that my motivation was lacking because I missed working with people. And so then I had to look at how do I design my day so I'm doing my alone work time that I have to, but how can I incorporate people in my day? Because that is good for me, right? So I have people like Lauren, who has become a great accountability partner for asking questions and bounce, telling me to get out of my brain at times, right? Sometimes we do need that accountability partner. We're not meant to do this life alone. Human beings are not meant to do life alone. We are physiologically wired to belong to a tribe and to be part of a community. So that can help.
So along those lines, I just read an article in the Times where they talk about how we're now becoming isolated from each other, and we're like muscles, we're starting to atrophy our social skills. Not that this is better than being face to face, but it's pretty close, right? And we need to, if you're in a job search, I'm assuming most people on this call are in job search, you cannot become a recluse. You need to be out there. And being part of groups like this and others that are out there, there's hundreds of these Zoom calls out there. you need to be out there and staying in touch with people and not not moving into a cocoon, because the world is going to pass you by, right? And so to your point, we need to be active. And if this is how we have to do it, okay, because this will pass. I don't know when, but this will pass. But you don't want the ability to communicate with people to go away, because when the time comes that you have to start interviewing again, if you've been a recluse, that's not going to be good.
Yeah, that's a great point, Joey. Thanks for sharing that.
Joey, I just dropped that article for you. It's
Oh, thank you.
awesome.
I'm
I
making
was
it
gonna
up.
say it's gonna be, and to add to that, it'd be a very hard thing to get out of, as well as being a recluse.
Yep.
Right.
Well, and
Now,
also change it up, right? So maybe get on, like, call someone. Actually, use this for what it's for, which is actually
I'll even like
calling people, right? Sometimes get off the video, sometimes call someone and actually have an actual, phone call. I know, some people have set up times like they're working on their resumes together and they're just on the phone with the person there. Hey, I have a quick question, right? Or they're on a Zoom, not sharing video, but they'll turn it on, but they're doing co-working sessions, kind of like they would be in an office, right? Somebody's sitting in a cube next to them working, you're working too. And then, oh, can I ask you a question? So, getting creative about how we do that.
right, because one day it's going to be important when you have a conversation with somebody in an interview that you can actually say to them that I know how to successfully mute and unmute myself on a Zoom call.
True. I like what Edith says is we wait or we think everything should be easy, right? That's that forgetting that we are going to learn things at all ages and phases and stages of our life. So we get this, right? Our bodies get big and we get adults and we get gray hair and all this stuff. And so we think that, like, I should just be able to figure this out. I should just be able to do this. Well, right. We do. And it's like, we forget, but have I ever done this before? Well, no. And just like when I learned how to ride a bike, and just like when I was a kid learning how to do things, I was going to screw it up. I wasn't going to do it perfect. And so even we grow up into these big bodies and we think that we have to be figured all out. And we forget, as long as you're in this human life, part of humaning is constant learning, constant growth, constant challenge, right? And if you can give yourself that hall pass, give yourself that grace. I'm learning something new. I'm learning a different situation. I'm learning to navigate a different way. You give yourself so much grace and compassion.
Is everybody else seeing what I'm seeing? A flash screen, like 4 or 5. Oh, now it's back.
Okay.
It all went like to 3 and then 5, like lines. So.
I would also say follow up as much as possible with anyone and everyone. And I post in the chat, you never be afraid to ask a question or for advice or for help. If you don't ask the question, then how you can know what the answer is. And I'm not saying I have all the answers, but sometimes it just helps to get another viewpoint from someone.
Yep. Yeah, there was a book by what was it? Failing Forward, and it was a John.
Daryl Hardy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Daryl Hardy.
No, it was
John Maxwell.
John Maxwell.
John Maxwell. Yeah.
Yeah, that was in the mid 2000s.
Yeah. I had amazing, I'll tell you, if you ever want to have coffee. So I put my contact information at the end of the presentation. If you want to have coffee, I will tell you about my Failing Forward here.
Okay. It might end up, I guess for now, it might end up virtual. Would we end up having a virtual cup of coffee?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Or,
so
okay,
at the end
or
of, at the end of the presentation, so feel free, connect with me on LinkedIn. I put a link in the presentation. You can book a coffee call with me. Have a call. Let's have a conversation. Bring your tea, bring your coffee, your water. Some of us have multiple on our desk at all times, right? And let's talk about what we're struggling with right now. That's the other thing, is that, you know, this appearance of perfection, social media, right? Everybody's posting all their success and all their, right? We're forgetting about real life, and we're people behind all of this happening. So we have to remember the peopling side of people, right? So I will be happy to share my failing forward year, and my falling flat on my face. I have, in fact, there is on my LinkedIn profile, I did do a live video about my first year in business and all the mistakes that I made. And that was just 1 year. That was just 1 year of life.
I have a question. What if people don't feel that they're failing forward, that forward is not there, they're just not getting ahead? What about that feeling, even though there are a lot of things that are happening? How do you get around that?
Yeah. So that's the work that I do behind the scenes with people. I can give you some, you know, some things that's, you know, to do that. But if you're really feeling, you know, if you're really feeling like it's just failure after failure and not making progress, my sense is there's probably some other emotional, you know, kind of emotional hurts or things going on. And so that's work that I do with people behind, you know, one-on-one behind the scenes, is finding out why, and finding out why that feeling exists, and what I call programs for life are conflicting with what you're trying to do.
And I also think sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone. I think we're all creatures of habit. We do the same thing. Got to try something different. What's the worst that happens? Again, it doesn't work.
Yep. Well, and the other thing too, and Patty, you bring up a good point. A lot of times we need to address the feelings, because if we're just stuffing our feelings away and not addressing them, they don't necessarily get to go away if we do that. They just kind of stay there stuck. And sometimes there's just some emotions that we actually need to pay attention to and acknowledge and be willing to understand and go, where did I get these from? Why am I feeling this way? And Ken, you bring up, your point is, we've sort of been programmed by certain beliefs and systems and patterns of life. And if what we're doing is different to that, we can have some conflict with that happening. So a lot of times we just need to spend some time actually finding and digging into the feelings around it. Feelings are really easy. They're just like waves. They move on. But if we don't acknowledge them, they just kind of get stuck. So if we're not paying attention to our emotional side of things, we can get stuck there. And as long as those emotions are playing, the mind will go, oh, you're still stuck there. We don't want to go anywhere. So
along those lines, and to build upon what Ken was saying, is that when you need to, because it's so easy to get into a habit and a routine and a rut, the simple things that you could do to change those routines are simple. Like when you go to the supermarket, just go a different way, travel a different set of roads. So then now you have to think about how you're getting there. And what happens is you start creating new pathways in your brain and changing the way your brain thinks. And just by doing simple things like that will help you to break out of your routines. It's a start. It's not going to be the end all, but it's certainly a place to start.
Right. The other thing I would say is that if you don't feel like you're moving forward, I would say stop. Take a break. Reassess. Why am I trying to do this? What am I hoping to accomplish? Is this really what's most important for me right now? And instead of stopping to try and push through the wall, stop. Go for a walk. Maybe you'll see a different view. Maybe you'll see something else. Take a break, take a pause, and take a deep breath. And do something different, not related to that, right? Have you ever worked on a puzzle? And you have this piece. You cannot get this piece of the puzzle in there. So you set it down, you go to get a cup of coffee or whatever, and you walk back and you're like, oh, it goes right there. Same thing when we're in this situation, right? We'll work hard every day, pushing and pushing. Sometimes you need to stop and take a break and go do something fun, go get some exercise, go do something ridiculous, right? I got a Topgolf membership this summer. And I don't play golf. I suck at it. But I got a Topgolf membership to force myself to get out of the house and go do something different. So I didn't sit in this chair all day. And it was amazing what happened some days when I was swinging that club, the ideas that came, right? So if you're stuck, stop. Get out, go do something different, and give your brain a break to find the answers in there. And an aha, a something is in there. So take a break. Get out of and come back to it from a different view.
Yeah, I'll share something quick about a failing forward, as so many did in real estate during the 2000s, like how many failed in 2008 and to 10. And then I really found out that I really wasn't so much into real estate development as much as I was into renewable energy, which is kind of, could get tied to solar roofs, could get tied to these sort of things. That's really more what my passion, if you want to say, is really about.
Well, I was going to say, the taking a break, you can't appreciate how much, that help you. I used to manage my group, and sometimes we'd be stuck on a problem, and we'd just walk out the door, and I'd be like, all right, enough. We're done. We're stuck. We have to stop. Sitting here is not going to get us any further. And I think there used to be an E.F. Hutton commercial or something like that, where all of a sudden you'd see him get out of the shower with a pad, and he's like, I've got the answer. And I'd walk in the next day and say, okay, I know what we're going to do. And he's like, you're the guy getting out of the shower, because the back of your brain still ruminates on what you're trying to solve. But when you give the front of your brain, a break, you'd be surprised what you can solve.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Sometimes you just can't beat yourself into submission.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. If you're struggling, stop. Just stop. Take a break. Because you're right. If you're struggling, I always tell my kids, you will never find what you're looking for when you're stressed and panicked.
Mm-hmm. But it'll be in the last place that you looked.
And right. And it's, and it's funny because you're right. Suddenly you have this thought that goes, oh, what about this? And you're like, why didn't we get there before? And it's because literally, you're looking at the problem through toilet paper rolls, right? So you got toilet paper rolls on your eyes and you're looking through it right here. Can I see the problem? When you put them down, you go, okay, just whatever. Suddenly your view gets real big and ideas will come. Yeah, absolutely. And that's really in my view, that's really what life is about, is learning how we work. How does our mind work? How do our emotional systems work? When we know how those things work, we can start going, okay, what do I need to do? Right? Like, what do I need to do right now? Do I need to take a break? Do I need to be pushing? Right? When we learn, we spend time learning how to use LinkedIn. We spend time learning how to use cell phones and computers. But we forget to have time about who am I and how do I work? Spend time learning that, because how you work in the job interview process, in the business process, etc., how you work is the best way to work. And that's what and that's the best way to do anything in life, is the best way that it works for you.
Thank you very much, Aundra, for presenting today.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. The opportunity.
Everyone next week. I'll save the chat. If anyone wants the chat, I can send it to you, and I'll put up the
please.
recording and the PowerPoint.
Do you want my email, or do you want our emails, or you have it?
Well, I'm going to put it in the meetup group. If you want to send me your email too, that's fine.
I don't know that I don't think I'm registered in the email. In the meetup, I mean.
Right. Put your email in the chat for sure. I'll stay on the call a couple more minutes for sure. And I'll follow up. Sure, no problem. So thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks again, Aundra.
Thank you for having me, Ken. I really appreciated being here. Thank you, everybody. For
and Aundra, what is your contact?
What is
you had in the back of the other thing.
Yeah, I have it. Let me just, I can just throw it
Yeah.
right here in the chat real
There you
quick.
go.
So I'm on LinkedIn. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll give you my email address.
And yes, the presentation will be shared, Nancy.
What is the meetup group called?
It's a weekly LinkedIn Lunch and Learn group, which we have, and that's where I post all the events as well as on LinkedIn
Okay.
itself.
I'm wondering where I can go and connect on Meetup, or I guess go to Meetup and then.
Well, I can send you, Russ, I can send you the link, or just remind me afterward.
No problem. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and Ken, if you post the recording, they'll have the presentation, but I'm happy to send you the presentation as well, so.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are actually clamoring for it here.
Yeah,
Bored
absolutely.
and brilliance. Huh.
Huh?
Bored and brilliance. A lot of, but that's a lot of emphasis on IQ. I thought IQ would be flipping out.
Yeah. Bored and brilliant.
It was in the chat there.
Ooh, yeah, there's the power of slow thinking, right? The art of slow thinking in our fast-paced world, right? Everything moves so fast. Digital world, we're moving at the speed of light. I'll have to look up who wrote that, but that's one of the good ones that I like.
That was Daniel Kahneman, wrote Thinking Fast and Slow.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I need to
That Bored and
appreciate
Brilliant sounds
slow
good.
thinking.
That's a good one too. Thanks for sharing that. I'll have to go look at that one.
Which one?
Bored and Brilliant. I'll have to go look up.
Oh, okay.
I always love a good book. My Kindle library is ridiculous. Well, you can tell I love books. There's some that once I read them on Kindle, I like them in person.
Yeah, I've been going through a process of trying to digitize all that stuff to get rid of stuff so I can get rid of a bunch of milk cart crates that I've been using as filing, which were never meant intended to be permanent.
I'm putting my house for sale tomorrow, and all those books that I bought the paper book or the hardcover instead of the Kindle, I'm like, oh, now I got to go rebuy them as Kindle because I want them, but it's a lot of packing.
That is, oh my gosh. Good luck. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Like,
yeah,
I'm
congrats.
going to live here. That's what I'm going to see every day as soon as I get back.
yay, good for you.
Where are you moving to?
Myrtle Beach.
Oh, from New Jersey. Wow.
Yeah, I live in a condo. This is what I see when I'm down there, but right now I'm looking at landscapers out my window.
One of my friends moved down there. He loves it.
Yeah.
You don't need to go.
I've been there on vacation, but he moved and he raves about it. He visits like once a year and rubs it in our face. He moved down
So do you have a space? Do you have space for 4 air mattresses?
I have lots of space. Infinite space, right?
We were supposed to go down this summer, but we didn't get to. I'm needing a good calabash.
Yeah.
Pat, do you need to quarantine when you go there from New Jersey or no?
Not anymore. We did the
okay.
dance. We went down there, and then you were supposed to quarantine if you came from here afterward.
Supposedly, you were supposed to quarantine when you came back from South Carolina at a time where South Carolina was healthier, safer to be in than New Jersey.
It's changed back and forth 3 times already. I'm sure it'll change another 30 times in the next.
See, their rates were higher, but their deaths are still really low.
My doctor said our hospital has 5. A week and a half ago was down to only 5 COVID patients total. The lowest numbers they had all summer. So I don't know. Wow. I'm going to go down for a couple months, so we'll see.
I'm doing a census enumeration, and we've at 95% around here, and so we've been asked to go elsewhere. So I've opted to go upstate. I thought upstate New York, Massachusetts are probably safer than Georgia and Texas, and so and I think I got some interest. I'm going to see what happens with it if it goes through, because we're supposed to be done by the end of the month, but who knows, it might get pushed off later because other parts of the country are only like 35, a little over a third done. So.
Exactly. Well, everyone stay healthy. Thank you again for doing this and for your talk. Appreciate it.
Thanks
All
a
the
lot,
best.
everyone. Have a great day.